for those of you who don't know me, my name is Russ. If you do know me, my name is Russ. And I am the president of the Chicago Apple User Group. My main thing I do, which I really enjoy, is inviting speakers in to present to us on stuff that sometimes I and sometimes you want to know. And so I contacted Gary and I said, hey, Gary, would you be interested in doing a presentation? I'm doing like a whole bunch of user group presentations like in October. I said, can you add one? He said, sure. And so do what's next in the macOS Monterey. I've always liked those presentations when we've had those because it's like, oh, that's what you can do. That's what you can do. You have to get it from someone, excuse me, like Gary, who actually lives this, has been working through it and knows it really, really well. It's like, yeah, cool. So I put out a ton of publicity through both the Meetup organization and the Chicago Apple User Group organization. Glad to see people. Invite friends. You can text them right now and say, hey, we are live. A couple of other small things. You should see a button on the bottom of your screen here in Zoom for captioning or live transcript or something like that. Go ahead and click that, and it will live transcript what each speaker is saying. So you should be able to see a transcript of what I'm saying right now at the bottom of your screen. Someone had requested that last month, and so I did the homework and figured it out and said, oh, this actually works. Yay, cool. So again, there's a live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Go ahead and click that, and you should be seeing the text of what I'm saying and what each speaker will be saying. Next month's news will feature me talking about home inventory. So if you're a person like me who would really do well to inventory stuff, that will be what we'll be doing. I'm setting up speakers for December and then January, February, March, stuff like that. If you have people, topics which you are interested in, drop me a note. I prefer E flat. That was Beethoven's favorite key to write. But any note you want to send is fine. And you can send it to me, Russ, Conte at mac.com, totally fine. You can put comments in chat, C-H-A-T, that's chat, not chat, not the guitar player. Normally what we've done is we've given the speaker some time to kind of cover stuff and then Q&A afterwards. Gary, how do you feel about kind of questions during the presentation? Do you want to take them or? Oops, you are on mute, my friend. Let me see if I can unmute.
I was trying to be nice and be on mute. As I go through each feature, I'll stop at places and say, hey, anybody have any questions about that before we move on?
Okay, yeah, that will work. And I don't have any other announcements, but again, if you just joined, my name is Russ. If you think my name is Barbara Passman, you have a problem. She helps run the group, and she actually does a really, really good job with that. And I don't think there's anything else right now as far as announcements, but again, one more time, you should be able to click live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom meeting and see live transcript. You can open up chat, pop questions in there, and I want to take a moment to introduce Gary to us. I think this is the first time you've spoken to Chicago, although you've spoken to a lot of other user groups. And he does a lot of cool presentations, and I'll let him kind of explain some of what he does. But it is really, really good. I looked it up and said, whoa, hang on, this guy is really good, the kind of person we would want to connect up with. Real good trainer, got a phenomenally good website, and newsletter, and all kinds of social media. So I said, hey, let's get this guy in here. And he agreed. And so no further ado.
Yep.
I'm going to
Bristol Park Drive.
Correct. Yep.
Let's see. I'm going to turn the floor over to Gary. And Gary, you should be co-host, correct?
Yep. I look good here. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Gary Rosenzweig, and I run MacMos.com. It's my site. Basically, I'm a content creator, and the content I create is Mac tutorials. So I come out with about 5 videos a week. Been doing that for a long time. I'm at video, I just recorded this morning video number 2,551.
Wow.
So started in 2007. Yeah, and they're short, 5 to 10, sometimes a little longer videos, just like, addressing a topic and things like that. I post them to my website, which is ad-free, and I also post them to YouTube. I have courses and things like that too, but mainly people know me just by coming to MacMost and watching my videos every day. And I have a newsletter. So the best way, like, to kind of get into all of that is I have a newsletter that comes out every Thursday morning, free newsletter, no ads. It's just shows you, like, here are the 5 videos from the week, and if there's any other little things going on that week. So yeah, so go to macmost.com and you'll see a newsletter link at the top, and then you just get it Thursday morning. You don't have to remember to go to the website, and you can see if there's anything that interests you and what I've been talking about that week. So for the last month and a half, I said I did doing courses, and a course I do every year is a whole Mac course. It's like the same as getting a book on how to use your Mac, and I do a new edition of it every year for the new operating system. So for like 6 weeks now, I've been recording, the guide to macOS Monterey. So I've been immersed in the new operating system that'll be coming out probably later this month. There's no official release date yet, but we're in beta version 9 of it today. Came out, and it's looking pretty polished, pretty like ready for action. Probably Apple's going to announce some new Macs later this month. Like maybe people are predicting new MacBook Pros, like high-end ones. And they like to coordinate it with that and say new MacBook Pros come out this day and Monterey gets released the same day or a couple days before or something. So Monterey will be here soon. And then you upgrade to that, and then things change and there are new features and all of that. Fortunately for Monterey, there's not much in terms of like how things really change. Big Sur was a big design change, like new fonts, new ways things looked, and behind the scenes, there's a lot of new stuff about how it actually worked. But going from Big Sur to Monterey doesn't really change much of that. Still looks a lot like Big Sur, still works a lot like Big Sur. But what they've done is they've piled on a bunch of new features. So there's a bunch of new things that you can do now. And that's really exciting for me because then I get to do videos and all that stuff. So I guess let's go and take a look at it. I'm running the beta here. I'm going to share my screen and you should see it now. So this is Monterey, and it basically, what you're seeing is pretty much what you'd see in Big Sur, except I'm using the default background, which happens to be purpley, and try to like reminisce, make it look like, underwater, kind of like this is an underwater scene here or something like that. So a little different than the colors for Big Sur. But besides that, the stuff you're seeing, like the menu bar, and there's control center and how the time and the dock appear here at the bottom, are more or less the same. No big design changes. So behind the scenes, though, we've got a lot of really cool feature changes. So let's go and start to take a look at those. We've got the first big change is something called focus. So before, you had do not disturb, and do not disturb is handy if you didn't want to get messages, like while presenting like this. If I wanted to not get like, notifications popping up, people texting me, I could turn on do not disturb. And there were basically 2 modes: do not disturb on, do not disturb off. Really, that's all you could really do. Now they've changed it to call it focus, and do not disturb is just the default focus, and you can create as many as you want. So the way you set this up is in System Preferences under Notifications, and it's called Notifications and Focus now. And you've got Focus, and you can see Do Not Disturb here, and you can customize how Do Not Disturb works. So for instance, I could say allow notifications from, and you could add, say, a person, say your spouse or somebody, into this, so that person could get in touch with you like a message or a FaceTime call from that person. You could also go into apps and say, yeah, when I'm in Do Not Disturb, I still want my calendar reminders. So let's let them come through as notifications. You can also go to options here and allow things like time sensitive notifications, calls in Face. You also can automate this and say, I want Do Not Disturb to be turned on at a certain time and off at a certain time. Or you could go and say, I want Do Not Disturb to be at a location. Like when I'm home, I want it to be Do Not Disturb. And when I'm at work, then it's fine for Do Not Disturb to be off. You could also specify an app. Now, the cool thing is that you can create as many of these as you want. Do not disturb is just the default. So I can use the plus button here, custom, and let's say I create like an evening one. So in addition to, having like nighttime when I'm sleeping, I want it to be on do not disturb. I want it to be a little different in the evening. So I could create one for the evening and I could set a color and an icon for it and everything. And then when I'm in this mode, rather than do not disturb, maybe I can add a whole bunch of people. Maybe my friends, they can all contact me in the evening. That's fine. But maybe the people at work can't contact me. The apps, maybe I say, yeah, I want to get like, I want to get messages, calendar events, mail, all this stuff is fine. Or maybe not mail, but maybe I want messages to go through and reminders when I'm in evening mode. So you can customize these. I create a work mode. I can create a mode for going to the movies, mode for watching TV, a mode for while I'm asleep, all sorts of different things. Mode for when you're in a meeting, like maybe a regular meeting or an important meeting. You can create tons of these different things here. Even some of them are special, like gaming here. When you choose that from the list, notice the list has some special ones as well as custom. Like gaming will automatically turn on when you have a wireless controller connected to your Mac. And you could go in here in system preferences and turn one of these on, but you normally wouldn't do that. You would just go in here and set these up. To turn them on, you would go to Control Center and then go to Focus, and then you could turn one on. So I could turn like evening mode on there, or turn it on only for an hour or until this evening. And you can also, just like before, you could drag this into the menu bar there, and now you can just access it directly. So you can easily switch between these. Before I showed the idea that you could have one activated automatically when you have an app. So since I'm a coder, I could do a coding one. And, coders don't like to be disturbed when we're like in the flow. So I could go in and set this one, and say, I don't want to get anybody to disturb me, nothing to come through. And I'm going to have it turn on automatically whenever I'm using Xcode. It'll automatically go into coding mode. So yeah, you can basically customize this to your liking and have tons of cool different modes. This is something people were just, asking Apple for all the time. It's like, we need more than do not disturb. We need to have ways to pick and choose and switch between things. And certainly Focus is just like all of that, tons of that. So any questions about Focus before I move on to other stuff?
I think we're good on that. I'm just going to
Yeah.
pitch in for just a couple seconds. We had a couple people join. Welcome in. Nice to see you. There is a button at the bottom of your screen that says live transcript. If you click that, you'll see an automatic live transcript. I'm not doing it. It's all done by artificial intelligence.
I thought you were typing that. You're not typing that out?
Okay, not as good.
That would be great.
Oh my gosh, yes. No, that's artificial intelligence. And then Gary is questions kind of at breaks like he just did. So if you have questions, post them in chat, or Lexi, when he takes breaks, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to mute myself. But yeah, I think really good. I already learned a lot, man. This is cool.
Yeah. Okay. So next thing is, now this is something you may already know a little bit about, because Safari has some new tricks in Monterey, but Apple put those into Safari 15. And just like in the past, the Safari versions and the Mac versions are a little bit off. They released the Safari versions early. And if you have Big Sur, you probably already have Safari 15. So you already have these new features. They just came out like 2 weeks ago. And they mainly are around tabs. So the first thing you've got is you have tabs look differently in the top. So let's go to a bunch of sites, and I'm going to do Command T for a new tab. And you can see I've got 3 tabs here, and this doesn't look too different, but these appear as boxes now, little rounded corners here. The one that you're using is darker than the other ones, but you can now go into Safari preferences. Under tabs, you can switch to the new compact version of that, and it puts it all on one line, giving you a little more screen space for the websites themselves. Here I've got the active tab, and that also acts as the address field. And I can type a search in there, type a URL in there, but it's in line with the other tabs. And if I switch to this tab, this one gets bigger, and this is now the address field or URL field right there. So it's just a more compact view. Apple introduced this and said it was going to be like this for everybody for Safari 15. And then some people said they didn't like it. So Apple kind of gives us two modes and we can choose which one we want. I personally am trying to use this mode more because you have all the functionality and you have a little more space. And I figure if you like one or the other, it's just a matter of getting used to it. So as I'm getting used to this mode, I'm liking it a lot and liking the fact it takes up less space than the mode that has like basically two lines for everything. But the real powerful feature with tabs is something called tab groups, because we all know that, sometimes we have a lot of tabs. Sometimes we have 3, sometimes we have 50, right? And the tabs could really get busy up here. So tab groups allows you to kind of separate those and have them in little groups. If you turn on the sidebar here, it's the easiest way to see them, but you don't need to use the sidebar. I'll show you how to not use a sidebar for this in a minute. It'll say here I have 3 tabs. These up here are the ungrouped tabs. So just using it normally, I have a bunch of ungrouped tabs. I could click here and I could say I want a new empty tab group, or take these 3 and put them in their own group. Let's do a new empty tab group, and it's going to create one right here, and I can call it something. Let's say I like looking up info about movies, so I'll call this tab group movies, and I'm now in this tab group. It's selected. So I'll go to IMDb. I'll open up another tab for like Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe I'll also go to Wikipedia because that's a great source of information for movies. And I want these 3 tabs to be here in this movies group, but I could switch back to this other group here of the, tabs that are ungrouped. I can create another one, empty tab group. This time, let's have all my Mac information. So I have Mac most. Let's do like Mac rumors. Let's do Apple. And, you could just add a bunch of Mac related sites there. And I can call this group, Mac. And now I can move between these groups and the ungrouped tabs. I've got 9 tabs open now, but I am only seeing 3 of them at a time. So it makes it a lot easier to manage. You can move tabs around in the group here like that. You can move a tab to another group just by dragging it over there, or you can control click on it and you could do things like this, move to another tab group like that. You could arrange the tabs by title or website. So there's a lot you can do here to, better organize your tab groups, and they sync across all your devices. So if you have 2 Macs, you can have the same tab groups, and you'll see these tab groups in iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 as well. So if you do create, groups like this that you use all the time, then you'll see them on those devices, and you can, add a new one or remove something from one of these. You can do all this without the sidebar. You still have this little pull-down menu here. You can click on that, and you can see I can move to another tab group. I can move to my ungrouped tabs like that. And I can create a new empty tab group or create a new group with these that I have in the ungrouped section just as easily here as you can with the sidebar. It's just nice sometimes to be able to see it over here if you like using the sidebar there. So that's tab groups. And yeah, I think, other browsers have had similar things like this for a while. So it's definitely going to be, something that maybe held people back from switching to Safari in the past. And now it's great that Safari has it too. And it works so well. And I think it looks pretty good. Any questions about tab groups?
Yeah, just one so far. Do the tabs and tab groups stay after you close Safari into the next session, or are they just good for the one session you're on?
Yep, they stay. So I'll relaunch Safari here. I'll go back in. And I think I actually had it set in preferences, I think, to not keep my current tabs, those ungrouped ones, but you can see the tab groups all stay. Now, another thing that kind of goes on in Safari here is there's notes. You have a new feature in notes. It doesn't necessarily have to use Safari, but it can, called QuickNotes. And you can bring QuickNotes up one of 2 ways. One is I move my cursor, my pointer, down to the bottom corner of the screen, and this little square appears. I could also use a keyboard shortcut, the FN key and Q for QuickNote, or on the newer Macs, it's a little globe key instead of FN. So the idea with a QuickNote is I want to take a note, but in the past, I would have had to launch the Notes app. I would have had to note and then start typing in it. If I want to do it quicker, I can use the keyboard shortcut or click here, and I'm instantly in a little notes window here, and I could add a note and type something. So, something quick here. Also, when you're in Safari and some other apps, you can click here and add a link. And the link, it knows what page you're on in Safari, even though they're two separate apps, and it adds that link there. So now I could, dismiss that note. Let's go and quit Safari here. Let's go into the Notes app and see what we have. We have a new section here in the sidebar called QuickNotes, and you can see that QuickNote that I created. I could leave it there, and you could accumulate QuickNotes here in the QuickNotes section, but I could also drag it over to one of my other notes folders to just convert it to a regular note. Not that there's any real difference between a QuickNote and a regular note, just the way you start the note that's really the difference. You can include all the same stuff in them. So QuickNotes is kind of a useful feature to just quickly take a note on what it is that you're going to, anything you want to do anywhere in, like, I'm not even in Safari now, but I could, bring up a new QuickNote just there in the bottom right-hand corner or using the keyboard shortcut. Makes notes a little bit more useful. It'll also, I think it's going to have improved functionality over what we have now in the beta eventually, where you'll actually be able to bring up the same QuickNote when you're on the same page in Safari. It knows that you're on a page in Safari where you started a QuickNote, and will bring it up again, which could help on research, but it doesn't quite work like that right now. But it's still a really useful thing that a lot of people are excited about. But that's not all that Notes has that's new. Another big feature of Notes is the ability to have things called tags. So anywhere in a note, anywhere you're just typing, you can add a tag to a note. So all you need to do is use the pound or hash symbol and then type whatever you want. So I'll do a whatever tag, and it turns it yellow like that. And then if you notice here on the left, you'll see tags, and then that tag will appear. So I could add another tag, and you'll see now there's two tags here. If I go to another note, I could add the same tags here. And now if I click here, it'll show me all the notes that have that tag. So this allows you to kind of link notes together and organize your notes in any way you want. You don't have to just rely on folders where each note has to be in one folder and one folder only. Now you can tag all your notes and include different tags, easily look at the notes that have that tag applied to them. And I think it's going to be a really useful organization tool in Notes, but it's also in Reminders. And Reminders works a little differently, because instead of typing, hashtag something here, which you can do, you could also add a tag here. So you have a tag field, and you could do it inside the text in Reminders. So this is the beginning of Apple using these kinds of tags for things. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, we actually start to see these kinds of tags in maybe other apps like email. Wouldn't it be great to be able to have like a little tag thing in email, and you could add these to messages that come in? We already have flags now, but tags would really expand that. And maybe even in completely different places, maybe going with the labels and the keywords that we have in Finder. It would be great if we could somehow have those same kinds of things. So yeah, so that's QuickNotes, and then tags and notes and reminders. Any questions about those before I move on?
Just one real quick question in chat. And this is me, actually. I do all my notes using voice to text. When you did the QuickNote, I didn't see the voice to text option. Is that there yet? Or did I just not see it? Or what's that?
Well, I mean, it should still work with the whatever keyboard shortcut you have, I imagine. So, if I go into, the two ways to do it, one's dictation, right? So, if I turn that on, and I've pressed Control twice there. So if I were to do a QuickNote, it should work. The quick brown fox. Yeah. So yeah, it still works there.
Nice. Thank you. That is so nice to add that to tags and stuff. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. All right. Okay. Now we start to get into some stuff that's just kind of mind blowing. Let's take a look in Photos. And one of the cool things you can do in Photos, and I'm going to show you other places to do it as well, is you can go into a photo. This is just a photo I took in the Photos app. And it's normal photo, But notice if I move my pointer over text, it changes to a text cursor. I can select the text in there like that. I can even control click the text and select. And I could go in and let's go into text edit. I could probably just do a note too. I'll do a new document text edit. I could paste. So there's nothing special about this photo. This is just a normal photo I took with my iPhone. It's just a new feature where you can select text like this. And it works on small bits of text, or, if you take a picture of a book like this, I can select all the text in this and control click, copy, and it converts it to regular text. This works in the Photos app. It also works just about anywhere images show up. So it'll work, for instance, in a preview with an image, not a PDF, but an image. It'll work in mail. Somebody sends you this image in an email message. You can select text and copy it out. It'll work in Safari, as long as there's no like website stuff going on with the image, like it's not a button or something, like you can actually just get through to the real image. It will work to allow you to select the text in an image in Safari. And you could do more with it than just that. If it's a phone number, you can actually, when you control click on it, you could call it. If it's an address, you can control click on it and go to the Maps app for that address. And if it's like a date and time, you can control click on it and then add an event to your calendar. So it's got some really cool, direct features. Also, I had the translate feature in there, which I'm going to show you soon, but you could do that and look up too. So like if I wanted to look up a word, I could, in this image, in the Photos app, I could look up this word here and it'll go to the dictionary. So a huge step forward. This works on any Mac that can run Monterey. At first, Apple said they were only going to do it for M1 Macs, but at some point during the beta, they said, no, we're going to have it for any Mac that runs macOS Monterey. Let me show you the next thing I wanted to show, which was this really cool new feature in how split view works. So one of the problems with split view, let's say you've got a couple apps. Let me open Safari here and I'll do reminders and notes. And in Safari, if I want to do split view, I could hover over the green button there, tile to the left side of the screen, and then I pick what I want to be on the right side of the screen. So I'll pick notes. Now let's say I'm working, in Safari here, I'm doing research and I want to switch to reminders on the side of the screen. Normally, I would have to just, exit out of split view and create a split view with Safari and reminders. But now you can actually go hover over the green button here and say replace tiled window. And I could pick another window and you could say I just swapped notes with reminders. And I could just swap, on either side here, I can do that, swapping out this one with notes if I want. So you can just continue to swap between these two. Also notice at the top here, the menu bar is there. And that's actually going to stay there. It's in split view. And it's, if I just go to full screen, notice Notes has the menu bar there. Typically in full screen view, you don't see the menu bar unless you move your pointer all the way to the top. But now there's a feature in system preferences. If you go to dock and menu bar, under dock and menu bar, before you had a checkbox that said automatically hide and show the menu bar on the desktop, which allowed you to hide the menu bar if you wanted to. Now they've added the same feature for full screen mode or split view mode. The default, the way it would normally work, is this way. But now you can actually choose to say, yeah, I not only do I want to see the menu bar all the time in normal mode, but I want to see it in full screen and split view mode as well. So for me, that's a big deal because I like full screen view, but not having the menu bar there is sometimes, not the ideal thing, because those are things that I want to get access to, and always having to go up and wait that fraction of a second for the menu bar to appear can sometimes be a bit of a pain. Okay. So here's another really cool feature. I'm going to go to the web for this, and there is now system-wide translation. So in the past, like if you went to a website that wasn't in English and you wanted to say, go to, some site here, let's, this is in French, I can select the French there and I can control click on it, and there's translate. And translate now just works like that. Now you get this special control, and I could have it play, speak out loud the actual original text. I could just read the translation, and I could have it speak out loud the translation. I could also copy the translation, and I could switch languages if it didn't get the language right. And this works anywhere. So let me, for instance, let me get a clean paragraph here. I'll copy this, and let me go to text edit. And let's say I paste this in, and I'm going to use it here in text edit, translate, and then it gives me the English translation, and I could say replace with translation. So you can use this just about any app that you can select text. I've already been using this it's useful in email. It's very useful when I get YouTube comments. I occasionally get YouTube comments that are in another language. And in the past, I've had to copy it, open up translate.google.com, paste it in, and see what it says. Now I've actually used it in Safari. I just select the comment and use this feature here, and I can see right there what the message actually is without having to go into another web page or anything like that. Let me know if there are any questions about any of the stuff I just covered.
Excuse me, I do want to do one small thing that comes up every so often when we do translations, and showing what you just did, that sometimes the system can speak. People will ask, how good is the speaking? Well, I speak in Spanish, and the Spanish voice on Mac and iOS is actually really quite good. I can't vouch for other languages, but it's really good. And you can take like a Spanish text, convert it into English, and listen to the English, which you'll understand. They've done an impressive, amazing job. So I'm not saying that would be your Spanish teacher or German teacher, but it really does work. So if you need it, it's a very good tool.
Yeah, and I'm going to add too that Apple has been quietly really pushing the whole translation thing into new areas, because there's that iPhone and iPad translate app that a lot of people don't even know it's there, and it's been there for a little while, where you can actually it'll actually translate. You can hold your iPad, on one side of the screen is yours, and the other side of the screen is the other person's. And like the two, you can talk back and forth, and it'll translate on the screen what each person says. It's kind of like, when you see it, you're like, oh, this is a neat experimental thing. And it's like, no, this isn't experimental. This has been working for quite some time, but a lot of people don't even know it's there. And clearly some of that same technology for translating and for speaking the translations is all built into all of this. So it's, Apple's just using the same technology that they've invested in all new kinds of ways. I also see there's another question about, do apps need to be rewritten to take advantage of split view? And yeah, a couple things that are needed. First, the app has to allow it. If the app says, no, I can't, there is no split view mode for me, then it's not going to work. And the other thing is that apps have a kind of a limit. So you build in, when you have an app saying, I can go into split view, but here's the minimum amount of pixels that I need for it to work. So for instance, in some apps, I've noticed on my MacBook screen, which is less than 4K, I can't go into split view with some apps, whereas I can on my 4K Mac Pro screen. And if I actually adjust the pixel size on the MacBook Pro to give more pixels, then suddenly I can go into split view. So it's definitely, that app says I need a minimum number of pixels to work, and it just won't allow you to do it. So yeah, so they could allow it. They have to allow it, but then they also could give it parameters and say it will only work on certain situations. Okay, let's see, other cool stuff. Let's take a look at an app that I don't know how many people use, but I think more people are going to use it now. It's called Voice Memos. So here's the way I like to use voice memos, or I think I'm going to be using voice memos in the future. Since this is an iCloud kind of service, typically what you would do is you'd record a voice memo on your iPhone. So maybe you're in the car, you turn on voice memos, you have this idea, and you're going to forget some things by the time you get home, by the time you get to your desk. So you turn on voice memos and you just speak and let it record what you're saying. This can be a little difficult because the problem is, unless you know everything you're going to say and then you can just say it, you're going to have a voice memo with bits of silence in it, right? You know, you want to just let it record. And then as you think of things, you can speak them. Well, the problem is if you talk for 10 minutes in your car and there's only 2 minutes of actual material because of all the silence, then now you're back at your desk and now you have a voice memo that's 10 minutes long that you have to kind of shuffle through to find out, you know, all the things that you were saying. Well, now you can go in any voice memo, not only to set the speed so you can have it speak a little faster. After all, it's probably you speaking and you probably just recorded this, you know, earlier that day or something. So a little faster is probably fine for that. But you could also say skip silence. And now notice this voice memo here has bits of silence in it. These are really short bits of silence, but it'll skip those. Watch it jump. So it just jumps over the bits of silence. And it's really kind of natural. Like if you actually pause in the middle of a sentence and then continue, and then you play it back with this, it just sounds like you never paused in the middle of the sentence. And if you pause for 30 seconds and didn't speak because you were thinking, it just skips over those 30 seconds. So it's a great feature. And I think for me, it's going to make voice memos something I could use a lot more. So let's see. Oh, okay. Now, for some people, this next feature is going to be maybe the biggest new feature in Monterey. You go into FaceTime now. You can start a new FaceTime conversation just like before, but you now can do something called create a link. And what this does is when you create this, you know, you have to pick a way to share the link. Let's just say copy link, which is kind of like, you know, don't do anything now. And it gives you this upcoming FaceTime call. And the FaceTime call isn't active now. You haven't started it. So I could say, okay, let me join my own FaceTime call. And now I'm on a, and you can see I'm not on a FaceTime call with anybody. It's just me. Now I could go here and share it any of those ways I did before. So I could airdrop it, email it, send it in messages. So let me just copy the link. Now, normally you would think, great, I have a friend that's got an iPhone or an iPad or something. They could join my FaceTime call. I can have like 3 or 4 people in a group FaceTime call. But as long as they have Apple products, right? Well, that's not true anymore because with these shared links, they work in web browsers. So as an example, I'm going to go to Safari here and I'm going to paste that link in that I copied and go to it. And it goes to this web page. That's just this one-time use web page for this FaceTime call. And I could type in any name I want, hit continue. It's going to ask for permission to use things and I could join. And now this is the web browser window. This is FaceTime, the app FaceTime. And it's saying, hey, somebody named Gary says he wants to join your FaceTime call. You say, yep, I've been waiting for Gary. And now I get that person in here, even though they're not using the FaceTime app. They're just in a browser. So this is handy already, but what's really handy about it is it works in Windows and Android. They just join the FaceTime call using their web browser. So now finally, we can have our friends that are not on Apple devices included in our FaceTime calls. So I think that's going to be a huge new feature, especially, you know, there's always, if you use FaceTime group calling a lot, you know, you always end up with the problem where it's like 6 people, and 5 of them are on, you know, iPhones or whatever. And there's that one person that just doesn't have an Apple device. And you're like, all right, well, we should do Skype, I guess, or Teams or Zoom or something else. Now you can just continue to use FaceTime and they can join on their device. So it's really handy. And just even that whole links thing, just being able to create this call and have it there and then send people links to it, you know, maybe even post a link. Like if you're in a private Facebook group, you know, you could post the link to people and, you know, knowing that only a few people can see it and they could just go joining, you know, with that link. You didn't need to know their Apple ID ahead of time for them to join. So that's like a huge, I think, leap forward for FaceTime. Cool. Any questions about that? Yeah, the quality seems to be the same. As a matter of fact, there's a new quality feature too. Let me show you that. I wasn't going to show you that. But when you're on a FaceTime call, I think, yeah, you could go here. So you access this in Control Center, and it appears while you have FaceTime going. So I think Apple's trying to go for this thing that while you're in certain apps, you can go to video effects and mic mode, and FaceTime's like the first one they're using it for. So in Control Center with FaceTime on mic mode, and I can go to voice isolation mode. So then it will, try to cut out all the noise in the room. And you can also go to wide spectrum, which does the opposite. So, people can hear everything around you. So useful if like you have a meeting and there's a bunch of people around, or you're outside and you want to have people hear the noise of the outdoors and things like that. And it seems to me to be pretty quality. The quality is about the same. We'll have to see. We each have to test it for ourselves. So I think that was the question Russ had. Yeah, great. There's no time limit on FaceTime at all. I think you just can. I have a feeling I know a certain teenager that can just talk for hours. So pretty sure there's no time limit on it. Let's see. Oh, so there's a whole bunch of things like, this update, macOS Monterey, reminds me of a lot of earlier updates where, if you wanted to find out what was new, you just look in system preferences and you go through all the different system preferences to see what's new. You used to be able to do that. And then things started branching out. You couldn't really tell from that. Now, this update actually has a ton of stuff in system preferences that you can do. So I'm going to show you a couple of big ones here. Under Apple ID, you have two new things, one called Private Relay and one called Hide My Email. Now, to use these, you need to be using iCloud Plus. So all iCloud Plus is a new term to describe any paid iCloud account. So in the past, we just had the free iCloud and then the iCloud where you're paying like $2.99 for 50 gigs of storage or whatever. With iCloud Plus, it's any of those. So I'm on like the premium, where I get Apple TV Plus and Apple Arcade and everything, and I pay $30 a month, and that's certainly iCloud Plus. But I could be on the cheapest plan, and I'd still have iCloud Plus. And if you have iCloud Plus, now Apple's going to start throwing extra features at you. Before, you may just have for your money. Now you have extra storage and Private Relay and Hide My Email. So these are a little hard for me to show because this is a demo account. The demo account isn't iCloud Plus. My regular account is. I do have some things I can show you that will make it clear, though. If I go into here, we'll just quick look at these. So this is what it looks like in system preferences if you go into Private Relay. So you turn Private Relay on, and what Private Relay does is it's like a VPN, but without all the features. Basically, it hides your IP address, and it encrypts your all your data from your Mac to Apple's Private Relay servers. Very similar to how VPN encrypts everything to the VPN server. So if you go into an internet cafe, say, does anybody use that term anymore? Internet cafe? I don't think so. Maybe just a coffee shop. You go into a coffee shop or you're at like a hotel and it seems kind of sketch. You can use a VPN or Private Relay, and you don't have to worry about like any of your data being seen by the Wi-Fi in the location. The Private Relay does that, and by hiding your IP address, websites can't track you as easily, right? Because 1 minute you may have one IP address, and then the next minute or next day, it's a different IP address, so they can't use that to track you. That's all that Private Relay does. A real VPN will do more. Like you could say, I'm in Germany, and then watch German TV because the German TV website is restricted to only people in Germany, and you can get around that with a VPN. Or as a website developer, I could see, how does my website look when I'm in Australia, like with the regional differences that I may have built into my site. You can't do that with Private Relay, and it doesn't have all these bells and whistles like automatically going on or off or doing these different things. So it's a really basic form of a VPN, but for most people, it may be all they need. And that includes me, because really what I use VPNs for most of the time, especially while traveling, is just to make sure that the Wi-Fi I'm on doesn't snoop on me. You can switch between your general location and country and time zone. So like my general location, it may go and say, oh, yeah, you're in Denver or I'm in Colorado. But if I switch to country and time zone, then it's just mountain time in the United States. And that's it. So you have those two options there. Now, Hide My Email. Hide My Email is really interesting because you go into that and you can create these cool little, let me go. Oh, I see. I'm not going through these in order. here's what it looks like. You go right into hide my email and you get a little list of things to the left. And then you get, with each one, it shows you what email address you used for that. So this applies to when you sign on with Apple, right? You get to these websites, it says sign in with Facebook, sign in with Google, sign in with Apple. And if you sign in with Apple, it creates one of these fake email addresses, and the actual website doesn't know your real one. But if the website tries to email you, it gets forwarded to your regular iCloud email address. You can now create these with that little plus button there. So you can go to the plus button and then it will create one. So in addition to being able to create one when you see that sign in with Apple thing, you can just create your own by going into system preferences. So say you're signing up for getting special offers from a department store and you're like, oh, they're just going to like send me so much spam and all that. I just want this one special offer. You can go into here, create a new email address. It assigns like random words and letters, numbers and stuff to it. And you can hit this little, button here to get a new one if you don't like this one, but you can't create your own. Then it'll create it. You can give it a label and a note so you can remind yourself this is for that department store newsletter. And then you're all set. You've got that one. Now you've got this special one you created. Anytime you want, you can go in here and copy it. You can give it out to that one place or multiple places. Anyone that tries to email you from it, it'll come to you to your regular iCloud email address, but it actually shows that it's coming to this one. So you can filter those out. Worst case scenario, if somebody tries to spam you and you just want to those who directly to archive or to trash, you can actually create a filter, but you could also delete them too. So this is kind of a safe way to use email. You don't have to give out your real email address all the time. You can use these things to create these fake ones, and it's an unlimited number of them. So it's not like an alias where you have like 3 or 5 of them, or you have to like an alias. If on my web server, I can create aliases, but every time I want to do it, it's this whole system I have to go through. This, I can just create as many as I want. They'll be in this list, and I can easily create them, destroy them, and use them to kind of, keep things private and also a little safety as well. So any questions about that? No, the hide my email is persistent. It's persistent. That'll stay there. You could use that to get that newsletter or to get that, special, discounts on things. Or if you sign up for like there's some site and it's like a little game or something like that, and you're like, they don't really need my real email address. You could just give it to them and, use it, and it will stay there as long as you want it to. Okay. So here's another cool thing in system preferences. There's a whole new section here called passwords. Go into that, and what you're going to get is a display that looks a lot like what you see in Safari. So Safari already had this, right? You can go to Safari, preferences, passwords. Now the same thing is also available in system preferences. So for instance, if you're signing into an app or something, or using another browser, you don't have to launch Safari to use Safari preferences to get your passwords. You can just get it from system preferences, a little bit easier. In both places, there are some new features. One of those new features here is the ability to export passwords. So you can export them. They're kind of human readable. They're like in a format, like a data format, but you can go in and you could see what the passwords are and all that. This gives us the ability to back up our passwords. So you save all your passwords there. You're a little nervous about the fact that all your passwords are in one place and all of that. And you're like, it would be nice to put them on a little flash drive, put them in the safety deposit box or something. You could do that now if you wanted to. So you can export them. You can import them into if you wanted to. Data transport, all of that. Also, you could go into any one of these entries, and if you edit the entry, there's something called verification code enter setup key. And you click that, and it allows you to enter a setup key for two-factor authentication. So a lot of two-factor sites, like say Google, when you set up two-factor, it gives you a setup key. There's usually an RFID, QR code, one of those QR code things that you can use to scan. And they also give you this long key that you could use. You can get that key, you can actually put it in here. And if you put it in there, then for this entry, you would see username, password, and it would say two-factor code and you would see the current two-factor code, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. And then when you go to log on to the website, you could not only have it automatically fill in the ID and password, but the two-factor code, which makes it a lot easier to use two-factor instead of having to go and do your ID password, then have to go into the Google Authenticator app or use Authy, popular app for Mac, another place to go get the two-factor code or get a text message, wait for the text message, read the text message, type in the code. You can now have that saved as part of this. Things like 1Password and LastPass have had this for a year or two now. So it's great for, the built-in keychain and part of Safari there to actually have two-factor built in as well. So yeah, so big changes there, big new cool things with this whole new passwords thing here. Here's another cool thing. In accessibility, if you go to display, go to pointer, there's now pointer size and color. So you can change the pointer size. The interesting thing is when I'm doing this on Zoom, for some reason, the pointer size doesn't change until I get to here. And then all of a sudden it gets really big. I don't know why. I guess Zoom is controlling the pointer a little bit. But trust me, when you do this normally, it grows gradually as you're playing this across. Then you could go and do like a different outline color and a different fill color and, make the cursor, any color that you want. You can always use reset there to go back to normal. So of course that's meant as an accessibility function, but I know a lot of people that are going to find that really useful. Let's see. Oh, yes. Another thing in system preferences, there's a whole new hidden app. You go to system preferences, erase all content and settings. First you have to go and authenticate. And then it's going to warn me, oh yeah, this is my demo machine. So I don't do time machine backups on this because there's nothing on it. But then you get to this point here and it's going to walk you through all these steps to erase all content. So before, in order to erase our Macs, if we were going to sell them or pass them on to somebody or something, you had to go and reboot in a recovery mode. You had to be like, for a lot of people, I'm sure not for a lot of us, but for a lot of people, it felt like suddenly you're going to hacker mode. You're like, I'm using disk utility and I have to format and do all this stuff. Now they finally made it basically a similar experience to an iPad or iPhone. You can use this erase assistant to erase your Mac and not have to reboot into special modes and all of that. So that's going to be, that's the kind of thing that's going to be useful eventually in new Mac, and then immediately, wanting to sell it, right away when Monterey comes out. But, as our Macs that use Monterey age, it'll be great to have that finally in there. I'm looking forward to the fact that, I'll probably have to wait like 5 or 6 years, maybe 8 years before, when I do a tutorial on how to erase your Mac so you can resell it, I don't have to show the old way and the new way. Like 8 years from now, I can just show this way. But so it's going to be a while for me, but for everybody else, they can start using it right away. There's also a cool new feature in here that only is on MacBooks because it only applies to if you have battery. You go to battery and there's a new low power mode, which is kind of the equivalent to the iPhone's low power mode. So, people like this, if you're not doing anything processor intensive, you use your MacBook to take notes or you're just surfing the web and you're going to have a tough day getting through the whole day without, ending up with an empty battery, you can go into low power mode or you can kind of go into low power mode towards the end of the day. So it's just handy to have that there now on the Macs, just like it is on the iPhones. And there's one last thing I want to show you, but I can't really show it to you. I can just show you how to get to it. There's a new mode in the sharing here, AirPlay receiver. So now our Macs can be an AirPlay receiver, just like Apple TVs. And you could select, just you're the only person, your Apple ID. You could do it with anybody on the same network, or you could do everyone, anyone that is nearby. And then you can require a password. And then your Mac becomes an AirPlay receiver. So I could take my iPhone, and I'm sure Zoom would totally mess up if I did this. But since I'm at the end of the presentation, let's give it a try. It's probably not going to because Zoom's already doing things. let's go, and I'm going to try to screen mirror my iPhone. And let's see, I'm on a different user. So let's do that. And it says here, oh, Gary's iPhone 13 Pro. Let's accept that. And hey, it works. You guys all see my iPhone?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. Okay, so there we go. And I could, I'll turn off screen mirroring, stop mirroring. So this is great because, well, if you have a Mac with a big screen, you can now AirPlay to it. It works on audio AirPlay too. So if you have great speakers hooked up to your Mac, and you want to listen to music from your iPhone, you can actually AirPlay to your Mac, just the audio, just like you could with an Apple TV as well. So this is a really cool new feature. And imagine also a Mac that is hooked up to a projector, right? You're in a meeting and you hook a Mac up to a projector and you want to demonstrate something on your iPad or your iPhone or another Mac. You have somebody else in the room says, can I borrow the screen for a second? They could just go into AirPlay and AirPlay their Mac's screen, just like you can do it, AirPlay your Mac screen to an Apple TV, you can AirPlay it to another Mac. And then they instantly take over the screen. A Mac Mini, you can put a Mac Mini in front of the room and use that not only to run the presentation, because you couldn't use an Apple TV for that, right? You'd have to have a Mac or an iPhone or an iPad to run Keynote or PowerPoint or something. But if you had a Mac Mini doing it and it was running Monterey, you could also have people AirPlaying their other devices to it and not have to switch anything over during a meeting. So that's going to be a really cool, cool thing to be able to use. Even just like I have my MacBook Pro and I've got my big Mac Pro with a big 4K screen. I could take my MacBook Pro and AirPlay to it and use that as another screen for my MacBook Pro. So maybe my Mac Pro is busy rendering out my video for the day. I could take over the screen for a little while and have a 2-screen MacBook Pro going on. So really cool thing. Now, there are 2 features that I can't show you because they're not here yet. There are things Apple includes as part of Monterey, but they're not in the beta right now, and they're not going to be in the first release. We're going to get them later this year, maybe early next year. So can't show you, but I can tell you about them. One is called Universal Control, which is a cool feature that allows you to have, say, 2 Macs next to each other, and you're using the keyboard and trackpad or mouse from one Mac, and you simply move the cursor to the edge of the screen close to where the other Mac is, and the cursor moves over to that screen. And now you're controlling the other Mac. You're not screen sharing. You're actually controlling the other Mac with the same keyboard and mouse or trackpad as you were the first Mac. Situation where I've got 2 Macs like that all the time, and I'm always having to take my hands off this keyboard and go over to this keyboard. I won't have to do that anymore once this feature is released. And you'll be able to do it with an iPad too. So you can actually move your pointer with your trackpad or mouse over to the iPad and click on things. So that'll be cool. And the other is SharePlay. SharePlay is a feature that will allow you to be either in FaceTime or messages. And so you can be, chatting with somebody in messages or actually doing a video call on FaceTime. And then you could say, hey, let's watch the latest episode of Ted Lasso together. And then you could launch the TV app, play Ted Lasso. The other person will get a prompt to say, do you want to also watch Ted Lasso? And the 2 of you will be watching together synchronized. So, you could easily see where this idea came from in, 2020 and beyond, and people wanting to watch the same TV shows and enjoy them together. It's going to be really cool to be able to see this this. It's going to work with music too. So you'll be able to actually have a bunch of people, imagine doing a FaceTime group call with 10 people and DJing the FaceTime call, going to the music app and playing some music in the background for everybody to enjoy while everybody's talking, enjoying cocktails on a Friday evening. So Monterey will come out without those 2 things, and then we'll get those later on. So it'll be really cool. It'll be like new features coming in the middle of the development cycle. So cool. So let me, I see the oldest Mac that'll work with Monterey. Yes, there's actually a list. If we go to, Apple's site here, they'll tell us right here, I believe it's all the way at the bottom, the compatibility list. Yeah. So some of this stuff, if you look at the features, they'll have footnotes and they'll tell you what works on which and what works on other ones. Maybe it's under all new features, I think you have to go into. Go to the bottom here. Oh, it's the same list. So it's somewhere, I think it's somewhere in here. But they did release, you know, the well, you can see other sites have reposted it, but I believe it's on this page here somewhere. So I'm not sure where it is. I won't waste any time here looking for it now, but it is definitely there on this. Do you happen to know where that is, Russ? Or
Not off the top of my head, I'll take a look.
yeah, it's a list. I mean, it goes back. Oh, here it is. See, it was right above it. Here it is. So iMac 2015 and later, the iMac, the only iMac Pro, MacBook Air 2015 and later, MacBook Pro early 2015 and later. The Mac Pro, this kills me, by the way, 2013 and later Mac Pro. So I had a 2013 Mac Pro, you know, the one that's a cylinder. It's small. It like fits on your desk. It looks good. It's a shiny black thing. And I upgraded to the really expensive big Mac Pro. I did that during Catalina because my feeling was that they weren't going to support Big Sur on it. So I needed to like make sure I got my Mac Pro so I could run Big Sur on it. And Big Sur came out and they said, oh yeah, we're going to support the 2013 Mac Pro. And I was like, oh, I didn't need to get one. And now they're coming out and saying, oh yeah, Monterey will support that. You know, so it's like, oh, I spent all this money on this big Mac Pro. And I really liked the 2013 model. It was like perfect for me because I don't have any cards or you know, extra drives or anything in it. And that was the thing about that model. You couldn't really add much to it. You can add memory to it, and that was all. Everything else was external. So it was perfect for me. I should have kept it. But anyway, I got this big Mac Pro that it's probably going to be obsolete next year when they come out with some sort of like M class one. We got the Mac Mini 2014 and later, and the MacBook, you know, they don't make that anymore, but early 2016 and later. So that's a pretty good, you know, you're looking more or less, except for the Mac Pro, you know, 2015, you know, in case of the Mac Mini, late 2014 and later models for Monterey. Cool. So yeah, any other questions about this or anything?
Yeah, and actually, the only other question was, in your experience, how has power consumption been with the new Mac OS, particularly like on a laptop? Has it been a power hog, or has it been real nice? Or
I haven't really noticed any difference. I mean, there's really not much in there to make much of a difference. I mean, between Catalina and Big Sur, there was a lot of deep changes, and you know, you'd worry about that a bit, but there's really not those deep changes here. And you know, the features you're using, like you think of things like live text, it's not going to be using live text unless you're on an image with text. And then if it gets the text, it has the text. It's, you know, it's not going to be using the processing power after that. So, you know, I'm not going to, my prediction is we're not going to see much of a change. And of course, the low power mode could actually be a significant help to battery, you know, life on the MacBook models.
And if any of the rest of you have any questions, you know, go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead and ask Gary, because obviously you've been playing with this for how long? I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, since the original beta, I mean, I downloaded the beta on the first day to play with it, but I would switch back and forth. You know, it wasn't until about 6 weeks ago that, you know, I really started immersing myself in it as much as I can. My main production machine, when I make my videos on, is still Big Sur. And because I'm still making videos on Big Sur, you know, I am making some Monterey videos for later, but I don't want to go and show people like, here's how to do this. And then it's Monterey and people don't have Monterey. So I've got my main machine, Big Sur, my laptop is Monterey, and, you know, I just switch between them. And it's also great to be able to try things out. Say, oh, this looks new. Is it? Go back to Big Sur and say, oh yeah, no, this wasn't there before.
This was a great presentation. I have a question about the conversion of photos. My understanding was that if you had a really big photos library, it was going to churn through all of those looking for text to make it easily doable, so that initially there would be quite a power drain on whatever device you're using. Have you heard that, or is that just wrong?
I haven't heard that. I'm not sure if it's doing it, if it's like doing your entire collection all at once, or if it's just doing it kind of when you go to an image that has text in it. I have a really big collection and it's all synced over iCloud. So when I, upgraded my one machine, my laptop to Monterey, I didn't even it took me maybe, I looked at some other features and it took me a while to get over to checking out live text. And then it just seems to be there everywhere. So I don't know if there was a time when it was actually going through them or not. If there was, I didn't notice it. And, I've got a lot of photos.
Very good. Thanks.
So, yeah. Mhm.
Anybody else, go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead and put a question out there, because obviously, this is our chance to learn about it. And I love this kind of stuff. Like, so when I finally do get it, and be like, oh yeah, it's going to be more familiar territory as opposed to, so yeah, Gary, this was wonderful. This is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Gary. This is really great.
Thanks.
Will this video be on YouTube so that we could watch it again?
Yeah, I'm recording this, and so it will take a while to compress and stuff like that. But I'll put it on the club's YouTube channel. If you want to find it, just go to YouTube and then just search for Chicago Apple User Group. There's a small number of videos. I think Gary puts up more videos in 2 days than we put up in a week. Because you do a lot.
Oh, Gary, what's your website? What's your video?
MacMost.com. I'll bring it up. Right there. So
And
yeah.
why would the app go, or why would the system go through to look at text in your photos? What's that good for?
Oh, well, I mean, just for like when I was showing before, the like you could take a photo of a book and you could say, I want to copy this. You can look up a definition, you could translate, you could copy, so you can, take a picture of something where you just want this as regular text, paste it in as text. Now you can use it in something, so kind of like a scanner, but photos. If there's a, like I showed, if there's a phone number in it, so you take a picture of like something, it's like it's going to be an event and there's a phone number and an address. Take a picture of the iPhone, you're sitting at your Mac, you could actually like select the phone number and then call the number, select the address and map it, select the date and time, and actually add it as a calendar event. So there are lots of different uses. I mean, like anything, there'll be a lot of people that simply don't need this feature, but for some people, it could be really useful.
Oh, that's great. It's really great. Thank you. That's great.
And I did want to show really quickly the Shortcuts app, which is another feature too, that I didn't really talk about. Then this has been around in iOS 15 and iPad OS, and it allows you a new way to, create automations for, doing all sorts of things. It's like Automator, but, built a little bit better, a little newer, a little more modern. So I think that somebody raised their hand.
Yeah, this is Greg.
Hey.
Greg Rosenzweig. Actually, Gary, I've been following you for years. I love your channel.
Thanks.
Also, I'm curious if you've seen any. I've been running the betas on my iPad mini since June, when it first came out, iOS 15. And I've actually made very extensive use of live text. I'm almost totally blind. So if I see something like a street sign, for example, and I point my phone there, it'll actually read to me the name of the street. So I use it very, very extensively, and I really love the capability. My question to you has to do with the VPN. I've been testing it off and on, but I've been finding I get a lot of timeouts. I know it's still in beta,
Mm.
Have you found that there's been any improvement? I haven't tested it since I upgraded my production devices to 15. But I'm just curious if you've noticed any improvement in the performance, or if we should just kind of hang tight a while.
I haven't, I mean, I haven't had any performance problems. I did have a problem up until like beta 5, where I would go to a site like that would tell you your IP address, repeat it back to you, and it was my real IP address. I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to know that, you know? And then all of a sudden, I think around beta 6, then finally it was like, oh, finally it works where it really is hiding my IP address. So I think it's partially that they're improving it, but also remember, a big component of Private Relay is all these Apple servers that are going to have to handle all this traffic. And I think Apple's just been ramping that up. So probably when we first started, there were just a few Apple servers handling all the beta testers. And now Apple's building up to launch. So they, now have a ton of servers online to be able to handle all the Private Relay stuff. So hopefully that's what you're seeing is them slowly ramping up for launch of Private Relay. And that's also, it still says that like in beta, like message next to Private Relay. And I got a feeling the real reason that's going to stay there and still stay in beta for a while is they probably know that, oh, we need to get 100,000 servers online to handle this for real. It's going to take us 6 months to do that. Until we get to that point and we see that we can handle all the traffic, we're just going to stay in beta. And that way we can, anybody that complains, we say, well, we're working on it.
Very good.
Cool. So yeah, I didn't want to gloss over too much the whole shortcuts thing. I probably should have talked about that a little bit more there, but shortcuts is going to be a big deal if you like to automate stuff. Automator, I think, felt a little inaccessible to people, but shortcuts, I think, is going to feel a little better, and it works on iPhone and iPad as well. So you'll be able to build some shortcuts that work across all your devices. Not all, because there's Mac specific things that shortcuts do, as well as iPhone specific things that shortcuts do. But there'll be some things you'll be able to do, like turning on a focus mode or something like that work the same across all of them. So anyway, shortcuts is really exciting. And what's really one of the most exciting things about it is you can actually do shell scripts and JavaScript and AppleScript in shortcuts.
Wow.
Which means that shortcuts is like 100 times more powerful on the Mac than it will ever be on the iPhone and iPad. And I'm really looking for, I have been playing around with shortcuts a lot, and I'm probably in the, after, Monterey is out and all that, I'm probably going to do a new course just on shortcuts, because I can see getting a lot of questions, having a lot of people that are finally want to roll up their sleeves and say, I want to learn automation. Shortcuts is finally here. And it's going to be fun to see what people do, create these little programs and things that you can do in shortcuts.
And if there are no other questions, that's like a wonderful segue. You offer what, and how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to talk to you about training or classes or anything like that?
Well, so the main thing is I'm a little different than a lot of the other Mac people out there, because I'm just basically a content creator. So I don't do any training at all, or one-on-ones or anything like that. I create these videos. You can go and see them at the site. The site, you may notice, does not have any ads on it, which makes me different than almost every other Mac site you'll find out there. There's no advertising at all. The way I do that is because I'm supported by patrons. So I've got a Patreon campaign where people can just voluntarily support me. Everything is free at the site and accessible by everybody, whether you're a patron or not. So it's just, they have basically, I said, I'm going to get rid of ads. If enough people support me, I'll get rid of ads. And I did. And that was 4 years ago. And it's been wonderful not having ads at the site, especially some of the ads that you see online. They're horrible. So there's that. If you want to, instead of having to remember to go to the site every day to find out what I have that's new, just go to the newsletter here. You sign up for this newsletter. You get an email. It looks kind of like this. Every Thursday morning, I send it out. And then it's just like, here are my 5 new videos of the week. And, maybe there's a couple other little extras in there, some links to things. I have a forum where people can ask me questions. So you can go in here and you can see here's some of the recent questions that have been asked. You can go ahead and go through the form here and ask me a question. And I try to answer most of the questions that I come across that get asked of me, the best ones, the ones that I think everybody can learn from. I post here so you can see various questions and, you know, the answers and everything from that. And then I do have, you know, courses. It's kind of secondary. So I do courses that you can get. But, you know, most people just go to the sign up for the newsletter and then check out my free videos every week.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Gary, how did you learn all this? What's your source to power up your brain?
Yeah. Well, first I have a computer science degree from way back. So, and I started using Macs in 1987. And before I was using Macs, I was using Apple II computers. So I've been using it for a long time. Got a computer science degree. So I've been a developer and a programmer for a long time. So I was using Macs all these years to create websites, to create apps, to create videos and graphics and desktop publishing and everything. So I was just constantly using Macs and I just knew everything about them. And around 2007, I started doing videos on how to use Macs. I also started writing books at the time. Nobody buys computer books anymore, but for a while I was writing a lot of computer books. So I just basically, I already knew all this stuff and I was already playing around every day with Macs, using Macs, learning all this stuff. And it's just in 2007, I just started sharing that by making these videos. And now that I have a lot of people that follow me, I just make it my business to, you know, poke around and experiment. And, you know, I wonder if I can do this in numbers, or how in Keynote would I make a transition that looked like this? And I just play around with it all the time. And I'm just kind of just naturally curious and not afraid to experiment and try things and see what happens and see what techniques I can come up with. And also the questions, when people ask me questions, you know, it makes me have to go and find the answers if I don't know them already. And that sometimes leads to some videos.
And then the other thing that I recall.
Thank you. That's fabulous.
Yes, oh, yeah. The other thing I recall is, did you also get like another major or something in journalism that you were?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because
I got a master's in, after my computer science degree, I got a master's in journalism. And then pretty much right from there, I went into like, at first, I would go back and forth between using computers to spread information, like creating computer type things like apps and websites and stuff, and then also teaching people about computers. So, you know, using kind of journalism to teach computers and using computers to spread information. And so that's how I led to writing books. I've written more than 30 different computer books, but I haven't written one in a few years. And, you know, knowing how to write, knowing how to make deadlines, knowing how to communicate with people and explain things. You know, it's kind of my specialty, just going between those two worlds.
And obviously I enjoy this a lot. I recommend, you know, check out his site because I do. Any other questions or comments or anything like that from anybody?
Thank you.
Bravo.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I will post this on the club's YouTube site. So if you want to look, probably on Saturday, youtube.com, and just look up Chicago Apple User Group. I'll probably post it at that point. So thanks, everyone. And next month we will be doing home inventory. And then, like I said, I'm looking for speakers for December, January, February, March, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, at least you can say, Daddy, I got
Hi, everybody.
that.
Thanks, everybody.